All right, guys, so solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. This is a big, messy formula that is a little bit intimidating at first, but once you learn how to use it, a lot of you are going to end up using this more than any other method to solve quadratic equations. The benefit to this one is it always works. So when you have your quadratic equation that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It doesn't have to be something that factors nicely or you can find things that multiply. The quadratic formula will always give you the solutions to the quadratic equation that you're dealing with. Normally, it's not always the fastest method, but it does always work. Normally, you're going to use it when you have something like 3x squared minus 7x plus 32 equals 0. That is not going to be a very fun big x problem. In fact, it might not even work at all. When I do 3 and 32 and multiply that together to get 96, I might not be able to find two numbers that go in here and work. The quadratic formula will always work. So today, the goal is to introduce you to the formula, show you how to use it. And once you've done this 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times, you're going to get really comfortable with this formula, especially if you're in my classroom and you're using the calculators that you have available to you. This formula becomes pretty easy to work with. It just looks scary because look at it right here. X equals negative b, and then there's a plus and a minus and a big square root with a b squared minus 4ac, and all of that is divided by a 2 times a. It looks really messy, so let's walk you through this a little bit. I am actually going to skip reviewing radicals. We have done that so much this year. If you have a question about how to simplify those radicals, you can come ask me in class, but we're not going to take time on the video to do that today. Step 1, if you notice up here, on my quadratic equation, it has it set up as ax squared plus bx plus c. All that means is whatever's in front of x squared becomes your a. And that's what you're going to plug into the formula everywhere that you see an a. What's in front of the x is your b, and you're going to plug that in everywhere you see a b in the formula. And same thing with c. Whatever number's all by itself plugs in for the c in the quadratic formula. So on number 1, I'm actually going to rewrite x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by, whoa, that is an awful 2. All divided by 2 times a. So first thing I need to do is I need to make sure I'm equal to 0, which I am. Number 1 is equal to 0. The second thing is I want to know what my a and b and c are. So a is right in front of the x squared, so a is 2. B is right in front of the x, so it's a negative 6. I've got to remember to take the sign with it. And c is the number all by itself, which is a positive 3. Now I just plug those numbers into my quadratic formula. So x equals, now when I plug these numbers in, you're going to get credit for this very first step. And well, in fact, you're going to get credit for writing a, b, and c. You're also going to get credit for writing in the values. So I don't want you to start trying to solve the problem yet. I want you to plug in a, b, and c where they go and write that down very first. So I have a negative, and then I'm going to plug in a b, which is a negative 6, plus or minus square root. And that b, I'm also going to put that in parentheses. Every time I plug a number in, I'm going to put it in parentheses. So my negative b, my b squared, I put the b in parentheses. Minus 4, and now I got to plug in an a, which is a 2. So I'm going to put it in parentheses, and a c, which is a 3. That's going in parentheses. And all of that is being divided by 2 times a. And again, I'm going to put that in parentheses, my 2 and my 2. This step right here, that gets you partial credit on your test. I'm going to be looking for these steps as you go along. From here, you can start to use your calculator to kind of simplify things along the way. The first three things that you want to simplify is this number out in front, obviously the number on the bottom, and then the third thing is everything under the square root. We call this the discriminant. Now notice I didn't highlight the actual square root. I just highlighted the numbers underneath it. I just want you to plug that information into your calculator. So the very first highlight, -6. If I put that in my calculator or I do that in my head, that becomes x equals a +6. And then I still have a plus minus and I have this square root. And all of that goes over a fraction. On the bottom, I just have 2 times 2. Well, that's easy. That's 4. So I'm going to put that in there. Now the messy part, inside that square root. You can just plug that right into your calculator, or you can kind of do it piece by piece. -6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24, so that's going to be -24, and I'm going to get 12. Or you plug it in your calculator, and it tells you 12. Notice that I still have a square root. I haven't plugged square root in my calculator yet. I still have a square root in the problem. You are also going to get credit for this step. So as you're working through this problem, I'm giving you credit for having this part on your paper. I'm also giving you credit for having this part on your paper. And the third place you get credit is for having this part. No matter what your final answer is, if I see those 3 pieces done correctly, you're going to get full credit, or you're going to get partial credit on the question. The final little bit of points comes from simplifying this last step. Okay? And the easiest way to do that is to actually, all of this is being divided by 4, but I can split that up. I can write 6 plus, whoops, I didn't want to write that yet. I just want the 6 divided by 4. Then I'm going to put a plus minus, and then I want to write square root of 4. What am I doing? Square root of 12. Numbers are hard, guys. All of that divided by 4. So to simplify, I split it up into 2 pieces. They both have that 4 on the bottom. And from here, it's pretty easy because 6 divided by 4, that's just 3 over 2. Square root of 12, now this is where some of you are going to have to remember, square root of 12 isn't a nice number. And so the way I learned to deal with that was to break it down to its factor tree. And then I would rewrite it as the square root of 2 times 2 times 3. So those 2's would come out, and I would change it to be 2 root 3. So that square root 12, really, I could write that as 2 root 3, which is nice because 2 over 4 simplifies to 1 over 2, and I still have a square root 3. So that right there would be my final answer, 3/2 plus or minus root 3 divided by 2. I can't actually add those together or subtract them because of the square root. So this right here is a great answer. This is what I would like to see at the end of the problem. All right. Okay, let's try number 2. Give you some more examples. I know I used a lot of space, and it's really easy for me to get rid of all of that. Not so easy for you. I apologize, but I'm sure you'll get over it. So number 2, first thing I want is it to equal 0, and it does. So I'm going to write my A's and my B and my C. A is 1, B is right here, it's 2, and C is right there, it's a positive 10. So now I write those in my formula. X equals negative parenthesis, and I plug in a B, plus or minus the square root, parenthesis, 2 squared minus 4 parenthesis A parenthesis C, all divided by 2 times A, which is 2 times 1. So step 1, A equals B equals C equals. Step 2, plug them in, but don't solve anything yet. Get those points for this step right here in case you get the answer wrong at the end, all right? Now I can plug some stuff into my calculator. I can plug this in if I need to, but I don't think most of you will need to. I can plug the bottom in if I need to, but again, most of you can do that part. It's pretty easy. And then I need to plug in the square root part underneath. So what I get When I plug in -2, I get -2. Crazy. Plus minus square root. Let's do the bottom number first. 2 times 1 is just 2. So now I need to plug in all that square root mess. Remember, I don't write the square root in my calculator. I just put the underneath part. And this is going to be a little bit messy because it actually comes out as a -36. And I just ran into a problem because we don't know what to do with a negative square root. We haven't learned how to do that yet. So today, my answer is no real solutions. As soon as that negative square root shows up, I'm done. I stop the problem right there, okay? So number 2, hopefully you run into more of those in the future, right? Because then you can just do half the problem and then walk away and be done. Number 3, we're going to actually change number 3. Right now it's x squared plus 10. I want to change that to x squared minus 10 equals 0. Now, what I mean by that is you're not solving the original equation. I want you to change the original equation. Pretend it was never there and rewrite it as x squared minus 10 equals 0. If we had left it a plus 10, I end up with this same situation again, and I don't want to do that. You already know what to do if you get a negative square root. So the first thing I want is my a and my b and my c. So my a is right here. It's in front of x squared. It's 1. My c is right here. It's the number. It's -10. But I don't have a b. There's nothing with an x connected to it. So my answer for b is 0. There is no b, so I get a 0 right there. So when I plug this in, x equals negative parenthesis 0 plus or minus the square root of parenthesis 0 squared minus 4 parenthesis a, which is 1, and c is -10. And all of that is being divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. Now, the reason you're plugging in these parentheses is so that when you enter this into the calculator does the problem in the right order and you get the right answer. If you plug things in the wrong way, the calculator does the wrong math. The parentheses helps you put it in the calculator the right way. So the 3 things I can simplify: the front, the bottom, and the inside. Let's clean those up a little bit. The nice thing is -0 is just 0. So that whole thing is going to go away, and I just get a plus minus. The bottom, 2 times 1, that's easy. That's 2. The square root, whoa, easy there. The square root part, 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times -10. If I plug that all into my calculator, I end up with 40. So I get a 0 plus or minus square root 40 all divided by 2. All right, let's clean this up a little bit because, again, you're going to get credit for that step, but I'm not quite done. I think square root 40 is going to simplify. If you're in my classroom, you plug it in the calculator, and you really quickly get a nice response. But if you're doing this on your own, you've got to take square root 40. Let's do it the way we do it in class, right? That's 4 times 10, which is 2 times 2, which is 2 times 5. So these rewrite as square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Those 2's come out. So that's nice. I end up with a 2 in front of my square root, and I'm left with a 2 and a 5, which become 10. And all of that is divided by not 10. I'm just making up stuff as I go. All of that is divided by 2. Which this one's going to simplify really nice because that 2 and that 2 cancel, and my answer becomes x equals a positive and a negative. The only thing left is a square root of 10. And since that's not a nice number, I stop right there. I'm done. X equals positive, negative, square root 10. Now remember, that's actually 2 answers, right? X equals square root 10 and x equals negative square root 10. But we can write them as one in one form like that. First example. Okay, let's go on to number 4. I'm going to change colors to make this a little bit easier to see. It already equals 0, so I just need my A, which is 3. My B is right there at 6. and my C is negative 5. So when I plug those in, x equals negative, my b is in parentheses, plus or minus square root, b, which is 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 5, all divided by 2 times a. So again, everything I plug in is going in parentheses. Then I'm going to simplify my 3 pieces, the front, the bottom, and the inside right there. Negative 6 just is negative 6, so that's easy to simplify. The bottom, 2 times 3 is just 6, so that's also pretty easy to simplify. The inside, when I plug that in my calculator, I end up with 96. Okay? So my numbers are coming out kind of nice. I mean, 96 is probably not your favorite number to get because it doesn't square root nicely. I'll show you a way in class on the calculator to just plug that in the calculator and get the answer, but we don't have a calculator. So we're going to have to split this up into 2 different problems, right? X equals, well, we're going to have to split the problem up into 2 different numbers. Negative 6 over 6 plus minus. Now let's look at this piece right here. 96 breaks down to be 2 times 48. Am I okay with that? Yeah. 2 times 24, 2 times 12, 2 times 6, and 2 times 3. Wow, that's a lot of 2's. So I end up with that 96 becomes the square root of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's and a 3. So when I simplify, I get to pull out one group of 2's, but I also get to pull out another group of 2's. So that means I'm pulling out 2 groups of 2's. So each of those turns into a 2. So my front becomes a 4, and I'm left with a 6 on the inside. Don't mind their interruption. So I got negative 6 over 6 plus or minus 4 root 6, which I can also put over 6. And from here, I can break this, I can simplify the 2 parts. Negative 6 over 6, well, that's just negative 1. And if you don't know that, plug it in your calculator. Plus or minus this 4 root 6 over 6. Please don't cancel out the 6's. You can't do that because one of them is under a square root. But 6 and 4 simplify to become 2 over 3. And that square root just stays stuck in there. It stays a square root 6. And that right there is your final answer. Negative 1 plus or minus 2 root 6, all divided by 3. So following these steps, you are going to get credit along the way. You're going to get credit right there. You're going to get credit right here. You're probably even going to get some partial credit for this step. But to get the full points, you've got to work it out all the way to the end so that you have that ACT preferred question that does not simplify any further.